I'm going to demonstrate the operation of the Hewlett-Packard 3335A synthesizer and level generator. This is the exact unit that I have for sale, and I'm going to familiarize you with the function of the unit and demonstrate its full operation. Everything about the unit does function as it was originally designed. So just get a little close-up going here, and you can see the title of the equipment there, 3335A. And I'm going to show you my setup. I have a setup here with an oscilloscope and a signal generator connected through a coax. The output is 75 ohms. I'm connecting through the 75 ohm cable to a 1 mega ohm input, and I have a terminator, a 75 ohm terminator there, so that when we make measurements, we'll have accurate voltage and frequency measurements on the scope. So it is a digital scope. It'll give us some readings. Let me tell you a little bit more about what's on the front panel here. We go over here. We have some major functional buttons. You have the frequency, the big frequency button, and the free amplitude, big amplitude button. There's some other buttons there that have to do with sweep generating, and we can look at those later. And then there's some memory buttons. There's a keypad. And the keypad is for entering into frequency and also amplitude of the output of the generator. And then we have these buttons which specify the actual what input you're putting in from the keypad. So if you put in 5 from the keypad and you hit this button, if you're in the frequency mode, you put in 5 megahertz. If you're in the amplitude mode, you'd be putting in minus 5 dBm. And then there's a corresponding button here for kilohertz. So you hit in the frequency mode, if you hit 5 and hit kilohertz, you'll put in 5 kilohertz. In the amplitude mode, if you put in 5 and hit that button, you'll get plus 5 dBm. So you also have a hertz button here, and you can put in 5 hertz in the frequency mode as well. So finally, you can also put in phase, and that's the degree button there. So we have those buttons to use for functioning, and then over here we have some manual buttons, which I'll demonstrate the operation of the manual buttons. And then finally we have the sweep control buttons over there on the right hand side, and there's a knob for manual tuning of the synthesizer. So let's go back and turn our equipment on, and when I turn it on, it'll come up in 1 megahertz frequency. It always comes up 1 megahertz frequency, and it always comes up minus 88 dB. So we'll see that, and then I'll make an adjustment on the amplitude so we can see the amplitude of the scope, because my scope won't show minus 88 dB. The other thing you'll see is over here on the right hand side, you'll see an annunciator that says unlock, and that tells you that you're not locked to the crystal oven. It takes a little while for the crystal oven to warm up, and once that crystal oven warms the crystal up, the frequency will be locked in, and you'll see that unlocked annunciator go away. So I'm going to turn on the power, and there we are. This is 1 megahertz. This little symbol here, if you can see it, is the hertz symbol. I'll see if we can zoom in on that, and you can see that it's hertz, and we have 1,000 or one megahertz on there on the display, and we're not seeing anything on the scope yet because the amplitude, as I said, is too low. We're going to set the amplitude at 0. I'm going to press 0 here, and then I'm going to press the dBm button there, and there is our signal, our sine wave. And I'm setting the auto scale on the scope so that we can see a nice clean sine wave on the oscilloscope. So let me show you how it works to change frequency using the keypad. So I'm going to go back to frequency, and I'm going to put in 5 kilohertz. So this is, I'll just punch in 5, and this is the kilohertz button. And there is 5 kilohertz, and of course the time base is going to have to change, so we're going to have to auto scale to see that signal at 5 kilohertz. This is a digital scope. We can look at the frequency. Here's the frequency and channel 1, and the scope bounces about the 5 kilohertz number. That's not the signal generator moving around. The scope just doesn't settle very quickly. But you can see it's 5 kilohertz there down here in the readout. And then we can go to, well, let's go to hertz. Let's go to 200. And I'm going to hit the hertz button. And here we are at hertz. I'm going to set the frequency. Still auto scaling. And there we are, frequency button. And so here you can see we're at 200 hertz. There's the readout on the oscilloscope. We're at 200 hertz. And then the other end of the scale is megahertz. We can go to 80 megahertz. So I'm going to hit 80, and then I'm going to hit the megahertz button, which is right there. And please be patient. We have to auto scale again. But now if you look at our annunciator here, it shows you, I think it's readable, megahertz, that little red spot there, and of course we're reading megahertz on the frequency display. So this is a synthesizer and level generator, and what that means is this is a perfect instrument for characterizing networks for frequency response. And the reason I say that is because this unit will go over a wide range of frequencies without ever changing the amplitude. So let's do that, and the way we're going to do that, let me back this up a little. The way we're going to do that is I'm going to go to the manual mode. So I'm going to hit the on-off button for the manual mode. Now in the manual mode, I can choose to change any portion of the frequency. So this is the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, megahertz, tens of megahertz. So if I wanted to change the tens of megahertz, let's say I wanted to go to 60 megahertz instead of 80 megahertz, I can do this with this knob because you can see that the tens of megahertz is flashing, and if I wanted to go to 55, I can use my arrow keys here to go to the megahertz range, or I can go back here and I could change that to 55 megahertz and 1 hertz added to it, or 2 hertz, or 3 hertz, or I could add tens of hertz, or I could add hundreds of hertz. So I think you get the idea. This is a synthesizer. You can put in a very accurate frequency on this piece of equipment. So given that I've demonstrated how the manual works, you can also use these up-down buttons to change the frequency by single units. But we do have it in manual mode, and I'm going to show you that we can go over a span of tens of megahertz, and we can go and we won't see a change in amplitude on the display. So I am going to get back to the tens of megahertz, and here we are. We're at 10 megahertz here, and notice you can see where our peak is here, you see where our valley is there, and it's 2 boxes up and 2 boxes down, and I'm up at 80 megahertz, and we're still 2 boxes up and 2 boxes down, and I'm at 10 megahertz and we're still at 2 boxes up and 2 boxes down. And we can go we can go down lower in frequency. I could go to let's just go to 1 megahertz. 1 megahertz, and of course the scope is going to have to auto scale again because I went so far. But here we are at 1 megahertz, and there we are, 2 boxes up, 2 boxes down. So in order to characterize a network for its frequency response, you have a signal generator that you can count on that will give you a constant output level over the frequency range. Okay, so I think we've demonstrated that. We did show you earlier the amplitude. I changed the amplitude, and you can change the amplitude from the keypad, and I can change it to minus 10 dB. I'm not going to auto sync the scope. I'm just going to go back to 0 dB, and the signal that you're getting is the signal you would expect to get, because at 75 ohms at 0 dB, at 75 ohms 0 dB, you would expect to get around 224 volts RMS. And I can show you the scope. I'm looking for volts RMS on here. Here we are, one, and there we are. It's showing you 279, and it'll stay at that RMS level as you go across the frequency range. So I think we've demonstrated all that. I'm going to show you how to operate the sweep function. And the way the sweep function works is we'll set in a frequency, and we have 1 megahertz in here right now, and then you can put in the sweep width. So let's put in 500 kilohertz. So this button here gives you the sweep width, and I'll put in 500, and then I will have it do a single sweep, and you can see that it's sweeping through the frequencies, and you can do that with a 10-second sweep or a 60-second sweep, and there you have, it looks like I didn't put in 50 kilohertz, I put in 50 hertz. But that's how the sweep function works. So you can use this equipment to sweep through a frequency range. If you are doing a network analysis, you can command it to go through the frequency range of your interest, and it will do so, and you can observe the output of your network on another oscilloscope. So I think I've shown you everything you need to know about how this equipment works, and demonstrated that it does, there's a stop button here, that it does do all the functions that it's supposed to do. And I will deliver a user's manual with this piece of equipment that will show you all the functions. I think I've got most of them. I've shown most of them. And there you have it. This is the very piece of equipment that I am selling. So it's not like this piece of equipment, it is this piece of equipment. And thank you for watching.